I read this book maybe 4 weeks ago. I've been handed it a million times and finally read it. And I have to tell you, whether or not you agree with the the history behind the book, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What is important is the larger message of the book. Author Jonathan Cahn believes we need to learn from ancient lessons. It was George Washington that made a covenant to God during his inauguration, and he warned us the propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right which heaven itself hath ordained. That's what he said. We have violated the covenant that Washington made with God. Cahn says that just like ancient Israel, we have been ignoring the warning signs. God's not punishing us. He's trying to wake us up. Following September 11th, there were several prophetic symbols both in and around Ground Zero that Cahn identified. Tonight, he talks to us about our country's economic downfall and the one he believes is still coming, and the solution that our country doesn't yet see, or not enough people see it. I believe you will. Jonathan Cahn joins me, author of The Harbinger, the ancient mystery that holds the secret of America's future. All right. Tell me about some of the other harbingers. We talked about the tree and the World Trade Center, but tell me about the economic harbingers.
Okay. The harbingers begin with 9/11. They don't end there. That's the beginning, and it goes out to touch everything, the fabric of the economy, really what's up to what's happening to this day, to this moment. We kind of left with the ancient vow of Tom Daschle actually proclaiming it from Capitol Hill. This is a vow which, just to bring up to speed, actually led to the destruction of Israel. It was a vow of defiance. He said it the day after 9/11. Well, this sets a course. This sets a course that we're going to rebuild. We're going to come back stronger than ever than without God. That's the problem. So what happens is that this translates first into economics. The government first says we're going to rebuild, but we're going to take action to undo all this. We will cut the interest rates. This is what they did right after 9/11, and it was in response to 9/11. We're going to slash and slash. What happened is this is something called the Isaiah 9:10 effect, and that is that there's a principle that just as with ancient Israel, that as they try to do all this, solve their problems without God, and try to undo this thing that happened, this attack, it leads to greater or another calamity. So here's this action they take. We will rebuild. They do it right after September 11th. And what happens is that sets in motion a house of cards. What happens is interest rates, the debt skyrockets, the housing market bubbles, just the credit bubbles throughout. Finally, it builds this house of cards that then collapses. It collapses 7 years later. Now, in 2007, 2008. So the principle is that God's saying, if you try to solve this without getting it, without turning back, there's going to be more calamities.
Well, I will tell you that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'm a guy who didn't listen to God for most of my life. Okay. And that is just a true principle. Yeah. That the more you force it. Now, I mean, I don't even know. I'm trying to buy a house now, and I've been praying for the last couple of weeks. First, Lord, tell me if this is the right place, and then praying every single day, Lord, if it's not supposed to happen, just let it fall through. Just let it fall through. Right. It's not supposed to happen. The more I try to force my will, the worse it gets. Right, exactly. And that's exactly what happened to ancient Israel. As they tried to do this without God's help, without doing it from God, and became an act of defiance, what Isaiah 9:10, that scripture we spoke about, is saying that you're going to have another wake-up call. And if you ignore an alarm clock, and another one's going to come. And so the first thing was 9/11. That's the first shaking in the Harbinger. That is, it strikes buildings. But the second shaking is the very power of America is being shaken. The economic collapse that happens. And there's an amazing stuff with this. There's a mind-boggling mystery. It goes back to Moses, and it's behind everything, even the timing of what's happening to the economy right now and the Great Recession. It's called the mystery of the Shemitah in the Harbinger. And what it is goes back to Moses. The law is that every 7 years, they said, you have to take a rest, Sabbath rest. And so no sowing, no reaping, no economy, pretty much. And it's supposed to be a good thing. So that's it. And on the last day of this Shemitah, or this Sabbath year, comes this kind of very strange day called the
called Elul 29, when all debt is wiped away, all credit's wiped away, bank accounts are, I mean, basically the nation's financial accounts are wiped away. So this is supposed to be a blessing. But Israel, as they turned away from God, this thing became, instead of a blessing, became a sign of warning to a nation that was driving God out of its life.
Because they weren't doing that every 7 years.
Exactly. They stopped doing it, so it comes back at them. It's the same principle. It comes back at them, and so it becomes a sign that strikes a nation's financial realm. And what does that have to do with America? America is not Israel. I mean, America is not under this law. However, as a sign, it's amazing. First of all, you have the mysteries, the cycle of 7 years. So you got the first shaking. You have 9/11. Then you have the second shaking, when in 2008. That's a 7-year cycle. You have, when did the financial collapse happen? September of 2000. That's 7 years to the month of 9/11. When the second week of 9/11, that's 7 years to the week. In fact, when America was commemorating the 7th anniversary of 9/11, the second calamity, the financial collapse, is being set up on Wall Street. And then if you go to the peak day, I mean, it gets even more. You got the peak day of the collapse. It was the greatest stock market collapse in American history. You remember, the opening bell wouldn't ring. They took it as an omen. Wouldn't ring. Crashed over 700 points. What day did that take place on? The greatest crash in American history took place on Elul 29, the biblical day of the Shemitah, that is the sign of warning of a nation that has driven God out of its life, that strikes the financial realm, that wipes away credit and debt. And if you go back 7 years, because there's a 7-year thing going on, you get September 2001. What happened then was the other greatest collapse in Wall Street history up to that day happened in September 17th. And when it happened, it was on the exact same biblical day of the Shemitah.
I have to tell you that I don't know anything about the Shemitah or the days here. I do know this, that the message that he is trying to send us is true.
Yeah.
That it is amazing to me that as I read this book, it opened doors in my head that I hadn't really thought of, oh my gosh, we are approaching this, instead of being humble, we are approaching this the wrong way, even though we think we're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So what is the two things?
Yeah.
What's coming next? And then, I mean, how many more warnings do we get? And then also, what is it, in your words, we're supposed to understand?
Yeah. Well, one thing is the harbingers aren't finished. I mean, we spoke at the end of the last program that even one is still ascending at ground zero, and we just mentioned how the president, I said, how he actually wrote these words on it that link back. So it's not finished, and the key is all in this template, because if you go on from the verse Isaiah 9:10, starting with Isaiah 9:11, which is kind of significant, goes on. It goes the course of what happens to the nation if it doesn't turn back. And the pattern is, and if everything's followed exactly, the pattern is that if we do not turn back to God, then what happens is we don't wake up after the first alarm, not after the second alarm. There will be another and another until either we do wake up or we do head, as Israel did, head for judgment. So what the call is, and I believe that there's a reason why the harbinger's coming on. If there were no harbingers, I would say there's no hope. I believe there's absolute hope.
Oh, no,
and the reason is if there's a harbinger,
he's desperately trying to wake us up.
To wake us up, exactly. So the thing is that I believe that one of the first things, if America doesn't turn back, we've had the crown of nations. We've been the head of nations. We can't maintain that without God, and we can't maintain our blessings without God.
Right.
So what we will witness, I believe, by the pattern is that one shaking is followed by the next, and one problem is not solved. I mean, you try to solve one thing, another thing goes back at you. And so, you showed this at the beginning, where there's this warning that Washington gave, which is at the beginning of the nation. That was that first day, linked to 9/11, linked to Ground Zero.
Right.
And what he's saying is that basically, America is blessed as much as America follows God. If America does not follow God, you cannot expect the smiles of heaven.
America, I want you to go and get this book now. You don't have to even be a religious person. You don't have to believe any of it. You can believe it, you can not believe it. It doesn't matter. What is being taught in this book, it's fiction, and so it's a great story. What's being taught in this book, I really believe, is the answer. And you said it, no truer word. He wouldn't be trying to wake us. He wouldn't be trying to wake us if it was hopeless. It's not. You won't believe how simple it is. The Harbinger, available everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
God bless. Okay, God bless. Thank you.